Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today's video is going to be my June reading wrap-up video. I love filming these videos. I had a very crazy reading month this month. I read 19 books, but like the first 2.5 weeks of this month I was just laying in bed recovering from surgery, so I had a ton of time to lay around and read, but I had some good ones, I had some bad ones, a little bit of everything. I'm gonna pull up my Goodreads. I started the month with some Sophie Crown mafia romance. I read the last 2 books in her Brutal Birthright mafia romance series. The first one was Broken Vow. This is the 5th one in the series. I felt like this one was the most unique from the series because only the heroine was part of like the mafia in this book, but even still, like she was still like kind of far removed from it. Like she wasn't like super mafia, like her family was mafia, and the hero in this book was like not mafia at all. He was just like friend of a friend, was like a Tennessee cowboy type of guy. It was very different than like the rest of the series, but I still liked it. This one was like a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, where like the heroine was very like grumpy and serious, and he was kind of like more like lighthearted, funny, sunshiny type of vibes. It was also a bodyguard romance because she has like a hit out after her or something, like somebody is trying to kill her because of her family, and so he is her bodyguard protecting her. It was just okay, just like every other book in the series was kind of like just okay. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. After that I read the last one in the series, which is Heavy Crown. This is the 6th one. This one surprised me a lot because I didn't really know how they were gonna like wrap this up, probably because it was the last one in the series and they had like a lot to wrap up. I felt like this was probably like one of the better ones in the series. Like it definitely had like the most actual like mafia stuff and like the most plot twists and like the most stuff going on. It was also the longest, I think. These books from the beginning of the month are kind of hard for me to remember because I was just on so many painkillers and like laying around reading, so I don't know. But I gave this one a 3 out of 5 like the rest of them. I don't think I rated any in this series higher than a 3. It was good. It definitely was like a fun, easy little mafia series, but after finishing that I haven't had like any strong desire at all to like continue on. After that I read The Roughest Draft, and I really enjoyed this one. I thought this one was really cute. I hear a lot of people comparing this one to Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I felt like it did have kind of like similar vibes. This one is about 2 co-authors. They like wrote a book together that did amazing. It like blew up. It was a really, really great book, but then they had like a huge falling out and never talked to each other again and like went their separate ways. But they had signed a contract with their like publishing agency or whatever and still like owed them another book. I just felt like this one was a very like down-to-earth, like relatable story, and I remember really feeling like the main character Katrina was just like a very relatable person. You also got both of their point of view reading this, which I really like in books. I like to like get to see both of their point of view. I love a good angsty slow burn. Like this was just, it was good. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5. After that, I read Say You Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker, and I really liked this one. This was a very cute, lighthearted, summery read. I see K.A. Tucker being talked about a lot for her, I think it's like the Simple Wild series that she has done, which I read the first one of that too, and it was good, but I felt like I liked this one a lot better, and I don't ever really see anybody talking about this book. I feel like it's a little bit underrated. This was a second chance romance between Piper and Kyle. You got to see their past and present, and basically they went to the same summer camp growing up and had like a summer camp romance when they were young, and then there was like a big falling out, big drama, you know, typical. So then fast forward to the future, she is like a big serious businesswoman working at her dad's like finance company or something, and then one day she goes to work and the new security guard is working downstairs and it is Kyle from summer camp, and she is like, what the heck, haven't spoken to you since that summer at summer camp. And it was really cute. It had really good summery vibes. Like this would be a perfect like book to go read on vacation or something like that. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I had a few books this month that I was just so curious about after watching like reviews of them from other booktube people, and this was one of them. This one was called Voyer, another little smutty, taboo Kindle Unlimited romance. This one is basically about a girl in college who is struggling with money, and her parents like spent her tuition money because she has like shitty parents or whatever, and so she ends up working at this like sex club. It's just like performances only in like a private room, and like people can pay to like watch you from their own private room, so you're not like touching anybody. Still really out there on display. The whole plot of the story is that one of her college professors is like a member of this club, and before the start of the semester, he like starts watching her here, and then class starts and he realizes that she is like one of his students, and it's like this whole, oh no, that's that girl from the club, which she doesn't know who he is because you don't ever see the people watching you. So anyway, I feel like I've heard like a million people talk about this book, and I was curious and I wanted to read it, but something that nobody ever talked about in their like reviews that I didn't know going into it was that there was like so much like sexual trauma in this book that, I don't know, the whole thing was just like cringe for me. It was very smutty. I knew it was going to be like taboo and smutty, but it was just like a little too much for me, you know? Yeah, I didn't even rate this one. I have no idea. And then next I read Addicted to You by Krista and Becky Ritchie because I felt peer pressured to start this Addicted Calloway sister series. I feel like if you watch any book videos ever, like this is just like shoved down your throat constantly. So I was excited to start it and to like see what all of this hype was about. It's basically about Lily and Lauren. I think his name is Lauren. Yeah, Lily and Lauren, but they all call him Lo. So Lily and Lo. Lauren is a extreme alcoholic and Lily is a sex addict. They're both really young. I didn't realize until I read this like how young they were going to be. Like I think they're both in like their first or second year of college. I think that that made them having these like huge problems like a little less realistic to me for some reason. It felt a little like unbelievable to me that they both were just like in these addictions so deep, so young, but what do I know? Oh, and I guess like the whole point of the story is that they like grew up together and that they have been pretending to date each other for like the past 3 or 4 years so that they can basically like cover for each other to their families about their addictions so that they don't have to get any like help or, you know, act differently, because they're both also from super wealthy families. So they're like these extremely rich college kids with these like huge issues. Basically the whole thing is supposed to give off like Gossip Girl vibes, which I didn't quite get from it. So they've been like fake dating each other since they were in like high school to cover for each other. Basically everybody kind of thought that they got their shit together, but they just got really good at hiding it together. Honestly, I thought that this book was really sad and kind of frustrating to read. You're just like watching these two characters like enable each other to like be really shitty like the whole book. Yeah, I felt like it was kind of depressing to read because the whole time you're just kind of like rooting for them and you want them to be better, but they're both just like struggling so hard and like not helping each other. From this one, I was not super impressed, but I feel like I have to at least give it like 1 or 2 more books till I can like form an opinion on the series. But honestly, after reading this one, I did not feel like compelled to read the next one at all. Yeah, I don't know. I will try to give this whole series like a little bit more of a try, but like I was not impressed by the first one, if that makes sense. If you read this or like the rest of the series, let me know what you think about it in the comments because I'm like curious. But yeah, I just rated this one a 3 out of 5. I don't know. After that, I read Alex Approximately, and this was so cute. I just love a really good cheesy YA romance every now and then. There's just like something about it. It's just so pure and young, and you're not worried about like real life grown-up issues, and there's no like crazy smut or anything in the book. It's just like wholesome, you know? And this one did it for me. This was a really cute book. Definitely cheesy, but cheesy in the best way. It's about a girl, Bailey, who has basically formed like a friendship with this guy on like an online chat room type of thing. It's like a forum for old movies and like fans of old movies, and her and this guy Alex have been chatting on there and like creating a friendship. She's kind of like got a crush on him. Like there's kind of a little romance brewing there. He lives in the same town as her dad, but she doesn't live with her dad. But then she ends up moving in with her dad, but doesn't tell Alex that she's there. Like she wants to try to like find him on her own so she can finally meet this like guy that she's got a big crush on that she's been talking to for a long time. So then when she gets there, her dad makes her get a job at this museum where she has a coworker named Porter, who's like a super cool, cute surfer, bad boy guy. And then she kind of like starts off a romance with that guy, and then, you know, all of the drama and everything. It was a really good like summertime read. This would also be like another good one to take on like a vacation with you. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. After that, I read the Sinners Duet by Sophie Lark. There are no saints and there is no devil. These are very dark romances by Sophie Lark, which is what she does. You know, it's a good old serial killer romance. It's about these two kind of competing artists in San Francisco. They're like very competitive artists, always trying to like one up each other with all the artwork that they do and whatnot in the art scene. But they also are both serial killers, not together, like on their own thing, and they're kind of like competitive in that way also. And then along comes Mara, who sparks up, I think his name is Cole, I can't remember. He basically like has a fascination with her because he's like a psychopath with no feelings. And then finally he meets this girl and he's like, I'm so fascinated by this girl. And they kind of like start up a little romance. But then the other serial killer guy wants to kill her because, you know, it's so dumb to say out loud. And like, this book was no work of art, but it was so entertaining. Like, the whole thing was messed up, but I had such a fun time reading it. I gave the first one a 4 out of 5. And then the second one is just kind of like a continuation of the story and like wraps up the duet. I did like this one too. I didn't like it as much as the first, but I still gave it a 3 out of 5. It was just like okay, and you know, wrapped it up nicely, which I appreciate. After that, I read The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle Laurie. This is another mafia romance series. I think there are 3 in the series, but this is the first one. This one was really good though. It was like a really good, fun read. I really enjoyed it. This was like everything about a mafia romance that I wish the Sophie Lark books were. Like, this just gets so much more in depth. It's like better writing, better story type of thing. This was about Elena and Nicholas. They're both from 2 different rival mafia people basically, and Elena's sister is like set up in an arranged marriage with Nicholas for, you know, benefits of the 2 families. So then when all of the family is meeting so they can start like, you know, planning the wedding and everything, Nicholas and Elena meet and they have major vibes and sparks going on with them. But he is marrying her sister, and he's also like really like mean, grumpy, brooding mafia man. The only time I can get behind like a big mean man is if it's in mafia. Everywhere else I'm like, you have no excuse. But if it's a mafia man, honey, go ahead. There was so much like angst and chemistry between them, and it was like a really good slow burn, and you're just like, how is this gonna end? How are they gonna make this work? I really liked it. I will definitely continue on with this series. This was my first book from Danielle Laurie, and I really liked her writing style. Yeah, I gave that one a 4 out of 5. Then I read a thriller, kind of mix it up, do something different. I read The Push by Ashley Audrain. This one was really interesting and really interesting to read as a mom. It's about a mom. Her and her husband are like all excited to have a baby. She gives birth to their daughter, and she just does not connect with her baby at all. The story goes on about her like coming into motherhood and trying to like learn how to be a new mom and like dealing with all of the obstacles of like having a newborn baby for the first time and like how hard it is. But it's also her like trying to kind of figure out like, is this like normal, or like why am I not like connecting with my baby? Like, why do I not like my baby? And then as the daughter grows up, like the daughter really doesn't like the mother either, and they have this like super strange like relationship and dynamic where this baby like hates her mom but like loves her dad, and it causes all these problems in their marriage because she always feels like there's something wrong with their daughter, and like her husband is like, no, there's not, what's wrong with you? And it's like this whole issue. And yeah, and then she ends up having another baby, and then something happens to that baby, and then she kind of just goes totally crazy. It was marketed as a thriller, which I didn't think that it was like that crazy thrilling, and I thought that it was pretty predictable, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a really interesting read, especially from like a mom's point of view. There was also a like multi-generational aspect to it where it was like giving flashbacks to like her mother's experience being a mom and her grandmother's experience being a mom, and I really liked that part of it. Like, I thought that was really interesting. Honestly, kind of average in the end. I just gave it a 3 out of 5, but if you are into like thrillers or like books about like parenthood and stuff like that, that one was pretty good. Okay, then I read the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. This is the second book in her Friend Zone series. I had read the first one a couple of months ago and hadn't gotten around to reading like the next ones from the series until now. And honestly, the whole series was so good, and it is so underrated. I feel like none of these books are talked about enough at all. There's 3 in the series, and I thoroughly loved all 3 of them. But anyway, this is the second one, and technically you can read all of these as standalone books, but I highly recommend that you read the series in order so that you can get the full character developments from like the books before. Reading this one on its own, you would not get the full experience if you didn't read the first one. Like, you just would not understand this character as much. Anyway, this one is about Sloane and Jason. And Sloane is having a really hard, awful time because 2 years ago she lost her fiance in a motorcycle accident like a week before their wedding or something. And so she has just been, you know, grieving the loss of her fiance and like the loss of her life. They were so in love. They had like such an epic love story. They were like planning their whole life together, and then he died and she is like dealing with the aftermath, trying to like pick up the pieces of her life. She ends up finding a lost dog and like taking it home with her and like trying to contact the owner of the dog, but she never hears back from the owner of this dog, and it's been like weeks. She's like, whatever, this is my dog, I'm keeping it. Like, she gets really attached to this dog, and this dog actually really starts like helping her, bringing her out of her depression and like giving her a reason to like get up and go outside and go for walks and like take care of herself. So this dog has like helped her so much. And then after having it for like weeks and weeks, she finally hears back from the owner of the dog. The dog owner was in like Australia or something, and the dog like ran away from the person who was watching it. I think she even tells him, she's like, it's been like this amount of time, I've called you like a million times, like I'm keeping this dog basically, and like hangs up on him. And he like keeps texting her. He's like, no, like I love my dog so much, yada yada yada. Anyway, then they start texting each other back and forth, at first talking about the dog, but all of their texting back and forth evolves and it starts to get like really cute and flirty. And then they're talking on the phone, and then finally he like comes home from his really long trip overseas and they like meet each other, and it was so cute. Abby Jimenez is just so good at writing books that feel like really realistic and like down to earth and have real problems in them, but she's also so good at just writing like flirty banter, all of that like cheesy relationship stuff. Like, her writing just really works for me. I have loved every book I have read by her. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. The ending gets a little crazy, like all of the conflicts that happen towards the end. It kind of goes like a wild direction, but I still really liked it. So then I had to finish the series and read the third one from the series also. This one is called Life's Too Short. This one was so good, and like the main character of this book, Vanessa, is like one of my favorite characters I've read in such a long time. She was so fun. I think her character was like based off of Jennifer Lawrence, and like I feel like she killed that character. Like, she did so good. She was so funny, quirky, just like a really fun character. It's about her and Adrian. Vanessa's sister is basically like a hot mess. She's on and off drugs. She's really young, and she ends up having a baby and leaving it with Vanessa. She takes the baby over to Vanessa's house and is like, hey, I'm gonna go run an errand really quick, and then never comes back and leaves the baby with Vanessa. And Vanessa is next door neighbors to Adrian, and so she's having like a really hard time taking care of this baby, getting this baby to like calm down. Adrian can hear this baby like crying through the wall, and like eventually goes over there and like tries to help, and that's how they meet. And so much more happens in this book. I don't want to give any spoilers or give anything away, but it was really good. I was really emotional when I finished this because I didn't want this series to be over. Like, I just loved all of these characters so much. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I'm definitely excited to read more of Abby Jimenez's books. Like I said, her writing just really does it for me. Ugh. After that, I read one of the most popular books this summer. I see it everywhere, and I am so conflicted about it. This is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I feel so conflicted about this book because I really liked it. I really enjoyed reading it. Like, I thought that it was a good book. It was well written. I liked the characters. I liked everything about it, but also this was such a complete ripoff of Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. It almost feels plagiarized how much this book was that book. And this is something that's super common in books, is like so many people using the same plots and tropes and same ideas, and it's just like, you know, like so many books are like that, where it's just like the exact same thing. But this takes it to a whole other level that was so extreme. Like, it feels like Christina Lauren could sue them for plagiarism. Like, this was literally, it feels like they stole their book. If you've read Love and Other Words, this is basically it. It's like the exact same plot, like the exact same everything, about a girl who has like a summer house that she goes to on the weekends, and in the summer falls in love with the boy who lives next door. And you see like their past summers and like where they are in the present, and there's like a big huge conflict that happens where they like don't see each other for like 10 years or whatever. It's the exact same. I don't know. On one hand, I did enjoy it and I thought it was good, but I also feel like I enjoyed it because I also enjoyed Love in Other Words, and this was basically the exact same book. I give this one a 2 out of 5 because I just didn't know how to rate it because I feel like it was wrong. It almost makes me mad to see it rated so highly because I just feel like it is so plagiarized, basically. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. After that, I read Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. On TikTok, I see it all the time on like TikTok and Instagram. It's one that's been around for a while that is always like really hyped up, and I hated it. I thought it was so bad. If you haven't read this one or heard about it, it's basically about 2 teenagers. They're like seniors in high school, and they have been pen pals since they were in like 4th grade or something. Like they got set up as pen pals in elementary school and have just like kept up with it forever. But then when they meet in person, like things don't go as planned. I did not understand the hype about this one at all. Like I don't know. I gave this one a 2 out of 5. Such unrealistic high school behavior, which is fine in books, but like this took it so far that I was like, I can't even pretend. I don't know. It was just wild. I didn't like it. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like it. Then after that, I read another Penelope Douglas book, and this was just another one of those ones that I was so curious about after hearing about it so much. And that is Credence. This book was fucked up. I feel like curiosity really killed the cat on this one. If you have not heard about Credence, it's about this girl whose parents both pass away at the same time, and so she becomes an orphan like 3 months before she turns 18. So she is sent to her only other next of kin that she has, which is a step uncle. Step uncle meaning it was her dad's step brother, but she had never met him until her parents died. Like they were never in each other's lives type of thing. So she gets sent to live with him and his 2 adult sons, who all live in a house in the mountains of Colorado. And in this mountain town, in the winter, they all get snowed in for like 6 months at a time. So she goes there, she turns 18, they get snowed in, and all 4 of them are stuck in the house for a whole winter. And she basically ends up having a sexual relationship with all 3 of them, even though they are all technically her uncle and cousins. It was a lot. It was so messed up. And there were so many things about this book that were pretty much everything about this book was just so wrong. There were so many issues with a lot of gray area of consent, and you know, the whole thing was really taboo. Like it was super messed up, but it was really entertaining to read at the same time. Like it was a page turner. I was like, what the hell is gonna happen? Yeah, I couldn't even rate it. Like I don't know. I don't know. It was absolutely wild. After that, I read The Words by Ashley Jade. This is one that I heard a lot of like positive reviews about, and I was really excited to read, and it had such a good story and such a good concept, but I just really hated the writing of. This is about Phoenix and Lennon. It's kind of like a second chance romance because they had like a little bit of a fling and a romance when they were in high school together, and then you see them like 4 years later and they hate each other. They're like enemies, but you don't know why. And he is a like super famous musician, but he's struggling with like drug and alcohol use, and she basically gets hired to come and be his like sober companion and basically keep him out of trouble so that he can perform better on tour, because he was like getting in like a bunch of trouble. I felt like the concept of the book was so good, and like the beginning of it was so good too. Like I really loved probably like the first 25% of the book. I absolutely hated it after that. Like I just felt like the writing was so bad. There was so much smut in this book, which is like fine. I'm fine with smut, but like this was just not good. It was so cringy. I didn't want to read it. Like I was just skimming a lot of it. Like the dirty talk was disgusting. I've just never experienced having a book go downhill that quickly, where like when I started it, I was like, wow, this is going to be such a good book. And I was like really vibing. And then it was just like turned into like the worst book ever. So I only gave this one a 1 out of 5, and I usually don't rate that low, so that really tells you something. After that, I read Archer's Voice, and I actually listened to this as an audiobook, which I think might have ruined it for me a little bit. Audiobooks for romance, just like, it doesn't do it for me, and it's also really embarrassing to listen to out loud for some reason. I also just really didn't like the like narrators for this. I feel like if I would have just read it as an actual book, I probably would have liked it better. This one is about Archer and Bree, after like something really traumatic happens in her life, she kind of like runs away and moves to this tiny town, and there she meets this like very mysterious man named Archer who doesn't talk at all. He's kind of like a secluded hermit guy with like a big beard, and like doesn't talk to anybody in the town, but she is like really interested in getting to know him for some reason, and it's their romance. He can't speak, but she speaks sign language because her dad was deaf, and so she like knows how to communicate with him. You get both of their point of view, which was really helpful since he doesn't really talk. It was like interesting to see like what was going on in his head. But I also felt like this book was so freaking cheesy and like a little over the top cheese wise, and like the ending was just a little too convenient for my liking. Like, come on, give a little bit of like real drama. I gave this one a 3 out of 5. I probably would have given it a 4 if I didn't listen to it on audio. I feel like that probably ruined it for me. Overall, I felt like it kind of lived up to its hype a little bit, but it was just a little too cheesy for me. Finally, the last book I read this month, I just finished it this morning, was Something Borrowed by Emily Griffin. I kept seeing this one on Goodreads all the time, and I thought that this was like a newer book. I had no idea that this book was from 2004, and it absolutely felt very 2004. It was very dated reading it, like reading about like what they were wearing and like emailing and like calling on landlines and like listening to voicemails and stuff. It was kind of like a funny little blast from the past in that way. It's about a pretty toxic friendship between Rachel and Darcy, who have been best friends like their whole life, but have had like a very like kind of toxic and competitive friendship with each other. Darcy is getting married to Dex, and Rachel is the maid of honor, and then Rachel ends up sleeping with Dex and then starts up an affair with her fiance, and yeah, basically where it goes from there and like how everything ends. I did feel like it was interesting to read, and I like when the author can like kind of make you be rooting for the bad guy in the situation. Like in this book, it was kind of hard to tell if you were rooting for Darcy or Rachel because they both kind of sucked, and like even though Rachel was sleeping with Darcy's fiance, you were still kind of like on her team a little. Like they made it feel justified, but also it was just like so messy and so messed up, and you know, it's just not cool to do your friend. This one was just like very reg av whatever for me. Like I'll never think about it again. I gave this one a 2 out of 5. Okay, those were all of the books that I read this month. Now my camera battery is flashing, so I have to hurry up and wrap this up. But if you guys have read any of the books I talked about, please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Also comment with any recommendations you have for me or anything that you want me to add to my TBR. Otherwise, yeah, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and subscribe, and I will see you guys all in our next video.